The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. Today we will be talking about what's new in PV Elite 2014. Our panelist is Scott Mayu. Scott is a mechanical engineer with 20 years of experience in the engineering and software development field. For the past 10 years, Scott has served as an ASME Code Committee member on subgroup heat transfer equipment. Scott is currently the Technical Director of PV Elite and Tank here at Intergraph CADWorks and Analysis Solutions. I'd like to thank in advance Luis and Kristen from the PV Elite team for helping us with webinar questions. A quick reminder before we start. All attendees are muted by default, so if you have any questions or comments, please type them in the question tab. With that, let me turn the screen over to Scott. Here you go, Scott.
Okay, thanks. Okay, hopefully everybody can see my screen now. Again, my name is Scott Mayu, and yeah, I've been here with Intergraph for quite a long time now. For those of you who are watching live today, thank you very much for tuning in. And for those of you watching recording of this, thank you for watching the recording as well. So we've been very, very busy this last year working on PV Elite 2014, and these are you know the areas that we always visit. This year was a big code updates year. We updated every major code that we had in the software, pressure vessel codes, that is. Section 8 divisions 1 and 2, PD 5500 and EN 13445. We'll also be talking about productivity enhancements, interfacing, quality assurance, and at the end we will work to answer your PV Elite 2014 questions. Okay, so here in the on this screen right here, you can see that we have a graphic of a Type 2 jacketed vessel, and this is one of our new improvements that we're going to be discussing. Okay, so let's talk about what happened with our code updates. Of course, as a lot of you might know, ASME Section 8 has moved to a 2-year delivery schedule, so we no longer have yearly type of updates anymore, or rather things like that. So every 2 years now, the ASME code sections 8 Division 1 or 2 are reproduced in their entirety. And so this year is a mandatory code update year, 2013. So some of the major things that were updated in this version of the code were to UHX, and that is the mandatory part of the code that deals with design of heat exchanger tube sheets. Okay, and one of the big things that was done in UHX was to incorporate operating type loads to a greater degree, certainly than in the past. And this was done to actually reduce a lot of what might be deemed unnecessary analysis. Okay. There are now 8 load cases for fixed tube sheet exchanger types. So these include your typical design load cases that you have, as well as operating type load cases. And before there were 7, and now there are 8, which includes a full vacuum, no thermal type case. And some of the cases actually got rearranged a little bit. So you're not going to see in all cases exactly the same answers that you got before. PV Elite did actually have 8 load cases if you had if you specified vacuum conditions. Another thing that got changed in and UHX was tube sheet extension thickness. Some new types of extensions were addressed, such as those types that don't actually see bolt loads. Another part of the ASME Division 1 update was were changes to appendices paragraphs 1-5 and 1-8. Okay, and these parts of the code address cone to cylinder junction. Okay, so before, the wording was such that, it really just did address, cone to cylinder junctions. But of course, there can be other situations. Cones could possibly be, attached to heads or flat covers or flanges, things like that. And since it wasn't really clear how to address these other types of connections, a lot of new wording was added into this section of the code to address the situation when you have a short type or a non-cylinder type attachment. So if this attached cylinder is very short, they've taken some steps to ensure that the stress in the cone to shell junction meets code requirements. So that's new. Another new topic is Appendix 26. Appendix 26 is the design of bellows type expansion joints. So Appendix 26 was updated to be in line with the latest EJMA, which is the Expansion Joint Manufacturers Association. Okay. Also, another big part of the code update was to Section 2, Part D. And this is the materials section of the code where we take our allowable stresses and yield stresses and other material properties. This was an extremely labor intensive task, and we updated 100 plus material lines in the code. So we have lots of new material updates and lots of updated material properties. Additionally, in this year's code update, the U forms that are required to be completed for fabrication of pressure vessels and heat exchangers were also updated. So we do have some automated ways of getting PV Elite information directly into U forms. And also I should note at this time there was a new form, U5 form, which has been added for heat exchangers. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about Section 8 Division 2. This year, in the 2013 version of Division 2, there were a number of updated equations and fixes for incorrectly printed equations. There were also, and this included the conical analysis equations, and also the section in the code that deals with combined stress intensity for vertical vessels. It turned out that, if you analyzed for example, a sphere, and it was designed appropriately and correctly for internal pressure, it would not pass a combined stress intensity analysis, even if there was no load on it other than pressure. And that was because there was sort of a disconnect between the equations that were being used and the design basis. And so all of that got reconciled and fixed up in this edition of the code book. But however, when we were going through the updates, we noticed some publication errors that crept into the new book, which were quite obvious, and those included the sigma 3 value, which is the radial stress due to internal pressure, which is sigma 3, and also a sign on on one of the stresses from the horizontal vessel stress calculations, or Zik analysis stress. There was I believe there was a minus sign that was inadvertently removed from one of the equations. These are just a couple of items that affected us directly, but all of those are okay. Okay, next, talk a little bit about the EN 13445 update. There was a new edition of the EN code that was released that we implemented in this version of PV Elite, and one of the main updates that we made were to the nozzle calculations. We went back and we worked with we actually worked with a consultant and performed a lot of checks and nozzle analysis per the EN code. Also, there's the EN flange standard, like our ASME standard for flanges. Theirs is EN 1092, and it was recently updated in 2013. So that caused all of their designations for flange grades or groups were changed, which actually makes this version of the software incompatible with previous versions as far as flange, pressure temperature rating calculations for EN flanges. However, that's real easy, to sort out. All you have to do is go reselect the correct one. One of the things that we also did was we updated the 1092 flange data. So these are all of the dimensional data associated with these types of flanges. Also, another thing that we did to make the software easier to use is we implemented smart class and grade or group selections. So if you select a flange class that's say an ASME class, it will only show you the appropriate ASME grades that are available for that class. And the same thing works with EN 1092 flange classes. So if you select an NP10, as I have shown here in the little screenshot, you'll only show the grades that are appropriate to go with that class. Okay, also another thing that we did was we updated PD 5500, which is the British standard, to their latest edition as well. Okay, moving on to some productivity enhancements. One of the things that we try to do is, we listen. We do listen to our customers and to all the things that we want to, that they want, and there are thousands and thousands of voices, believe me. So we want to work to make your lives easier, and so to do this, one of the things that we had done in the past was to implement Type 1 jackets, which are jacket types that basically just go around cylinders. And so this version, we also went back and we implemented Type 2 jackets, which we showed you on the second screen. So that is it's a bottom head type jacket that attaches to a Type 1 jacket, essentially. Okay, so the next thing right here was we wanted to provide and have automatic file backups. So what we did is we borrowed the idea from one of our other products here, and we now create file backups. And there are actually 11 total revisions that are stored for each job that you run. So one of them is an exact duplicate of the file that you have, and the previous revisions are dated by time. Okay, so if you run one job, it gets stored and it's decorated with the date and the time. Okay, and this process keeps happening, and after the 12th one, The 11th one is actually deleted. Okay. So so if you ever something bad happens, you lose power or what have you, you'll have a backup file off of the system folder, and that system folder is typically on your C drive if that's where you've installed the software, and it's in the public documents Intergraph CAS PV Elite 2014 folder. So you'll see it if you browse there. Okay, another thing that we did for EN13445 is we have direct user interface support for cold spun heads. Okay, so so if you're on the right type of material where this checkbox is applicable, it will light up and you can check it if this is the type of construction that you have for the head. Okay, and that does change the calculations. Okay, another thing that we did was to address another section of the EN13445 code, which was for MDMT. There were several graphs for several different types of materials that were added to the software that weren't that weren't previously there. Okay, so this is something new for this version. So as you can see, we did concentrate and work on EN13445 a lot in this version. Another thing that we did was we expanded the way data is actually stored in the PV Elite database. The PVDB file is actually an SQL database that is easily accessible if you have a little bit of programming skills to do so. So now you can see, you can easily see all of the data. So if you're writing your own program and you want to get at all of the data, that's now easily doable. Okay. Next, we have one thing that we added was the South African wind and seismic codes, and this is something that something that we always like to do. Not having to enter in tables of wind pressure versus elevation, or having to use another seismic code to emulate the one in your local area can be difficult. So we like to make these things as easy as possible. So you just have to plug in the data for your region and let the software do all of the hard work. So this is something that should definitely save some time and trouble. Okay. More productivity enhancements. We have now incorporated outside diameter basis for all codes. Okay, and previously ASME Section 8 Division 1 was the only code that we had that had inside diameter as well as outside diameter basis support for major element types, so cylinders and cones and heads and so forth. So now what we've done is we have increased that range for all of the codes. So for Division 2, for PD 5500 and EN13445, we now have OD selection. Okay, so again, hopefully this is something that makes your life easier when you have elements that are based on outside diameter, dimensions. Okay, also the IBC 2012 wind and seismic codes were added. And I should say right now, if you're using or have used, the IBC codes and the ASCE 2010 codes, there were some changes made to 2010 as well. For those of you that might not have been aware, the wind speeds were increased in the code while none of the equations were changed. However, what ASCE did was to put a factor of 0.6 on the generation of the wind load. So now, PV Elite will do that automatically for you. However, you must enter in the correct wind speed for your code. Okay, so and there's a little printout in the report output that that makes you aware of that. Okay, so next we have the ASME Still Stack standard was updated this year. Team of tube sheets were added back to CodeCalc. This functionality was not there in the original 2013 version. We actually made quite a number of improvements to CodeCalc over the last year, and we will be working to bring more functionality and more types of analysis to CodeCalc in the upcoming year. Okay, check for updates. You're all familiar with check for updates and most software that you get Windows updates. But if you're like me, you get bombarded with Java updates almost every day. So now what we wanted to do is give you the power to have the software automatically check for updates for you. Okay, so PV Elite 2014 will, at your discretion, on a weekly, daily, or monthly basis, check for updates, and it will check for things like hot fixes, service packs, new versions, all those sorts of things. Okay, next, full bolt load for floating for floating heads. Some of you might be familiar with this. This has to do with calculation of the bolt area and the load that's produced for flanges that are might have to take extra abuse and so forth. So we've extended this for our floating head design. Also, the quick access toolbar functionality was added to this version. So there are, PV Elite has lots of icons, and if you have some favorite things that you like to do, some favorite buttons that you like to press on the software, you can add those to the quick access toolbar across the top of the screen. Okay, G-loading. This was a request to have ASCE type force calculation and load distribution with our G-loading for vertical vessels. So before, what we would do is we would actually calculate the the horizontal load based on the mass and the G-load that was specified for the element, and that force times the moment arm to the support would be used to generate the moment, the cumulative moment. So now what we've done is we've given you an option to actually use an ASCE weighted sum and distance type force calculation. Okay, another productivity enhancement, if you want to call it that, are some other generic usability things like displaying larger text. So as Sangeeta mentioned, I'm getting pretty old, and so larger fonts are easier for me to read. So I think you'll find that a nice thing too. Okay. So here's a screenshot of CodeCalc. So for those of you that might have been using the 2012 version, CodeCalc and PV Elite, the user interface was updated for 2013, and this is what it looks like. This is what CodeCalc looks like now. It's got a tree view of the components on the left side of the screen, and we have a much updated user interface, and it's something that allows us to work on the software much better. And this new version will continue to run on newer versions of Windows. Certainly, hopefully much better than the old versions that we have. And in this screenshot right here, you can see our that we have. This is a screenshot of a team of tube sheet calculation, and And again, like I said earlier, I don't have time to discuss every little change that we made to the software. But for example, right here in CodeCalc, you can see that you have, choices between different team editions, like in this case, the 8th or the 9th right here. Okay, interfacing. One of the things that we have done, we have teamed up with Pollen Research Group, who are also here in Houston, to connect Nozzle Pro to CodeCalc. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to continue to deliver other available FEA analysis directly into PV Elite. So, in the calendar year 2014, we'll be working to integrate nozzle analysis directly into PV Elite, along with other types of analysis that are available in Nozzle Pro, such as horizontal vessel analysis, support lug analysis, lifting lug analysis, expansion joint analysis, and clips. So for those of you that might not be aware of what Nozzle Pro does, it's a special purpose finite element analysis program for the types of problems that vessel designers and engineers and piping designers and engineers have to solve, with the added benefit that it does specialized code comparisons to ASME. So anyway, if you've not ever seen it or taken a look at it, you can contact PRG or Intergraph actually to to purchase the software. Okay, quality assurance. Quality assurance is very, very important to us. Over the last couple of years, one of our other products, Caesar 2, has gone through an extensive, NQA development, and while PV Elite is not an NQA program, we are very, very concerned about the results that the software is producing, not only how the user interface behaves, but we want to be sure that we're getting good, verifiable results from one version to the next. So one of the things that we did during the course of the year was we created a lot of EN 13445 jobs, and we've compared those to results from an extensive MathCAD spreadsheet as well as our European consultant. And we have also compared PV Elite results to ASME PTB-3 and PTB-4. So these are publications for sample problems. Okay, and I should mention, again, for those of you that might not know, is that the sample problems that you were used to seeing in Section 8 Division 1 Appendix L and other places in the codebook have now been removed, okay, and they are placed in a standalone publication, and they're called PTB-3 and PTB-4. Okay, and you can, again, you can purchase these from ASME. So one of the things that we did for this version is we have included in the QA folder quite a number of the sample problems, so that you can run these samples. If you have an AI or some other inspector or somebody that's interested in knowing whether or not we actually did anything to test the program. Okay, so along those same lines, what we did this year is we wanted to give our users one of the programs that allows us to test the PV Elite results. Okay, so if you're familiar with how PV Elite results, you type in your input, you analyze it, and then you get a lot of reports, and they're formatted in the way of text. Well, in addition to all of the text results, PV Elite can be analyzed in a certain way where it will produce a database of results, okay? And our QA test program, essentially what it does is it compares two big databases of results, and it will show you what the differences are in those results. Okay, and we're going to take a look at that here in just a moment. Okay, in this version of PV Elite, we added about another 30 or more QA jobs to our benchmark problem set, and a number of those, as I mentioned before, were for EN 13445, and we also updated our QA manual to include these EN 13445 nozzle tests. Okay, and again, when you install PV Elite onto your system, a folder called QA is at the same level as the program installation directory, and that's where you will find this QA folder along with all of these test jobs. Okay, so here is a screenshot of a typical results comparison. Okay, so the way this works is you would have a benchmark job set, and you would run each of the jobs in PV Elite. Okay, and again, and the instructions are all in the help that is part of the QA test program. So I can't get into specifics of how you do this, but all you have to do is read the help, and it explains it pretty clearly. So when you get a new version of PV Elite or a new service pack or some other type of upgrade, what you can do is you can run your benchmark problem set in your testing folder, and then compare the results from one to the other using this program right here. So you'll notice there's a big file down there that says compare files, and when you press that button, what it does is it compares up to 192,000 individual results, data results when you run these different jobs. And I should say, not every single result that PV Elite calculates goes into this testing, into these results, but the vast majority of data that the program produces does. Okay, so certainly if anything majorly is wrong, it will be caught extremely quickly. And so this goes along with our ideas and concepts for automated testing. And down at the bottom of the screen right here, you'll notice that we have a little Excel button. So in addition, just to knowing if there was one single result and 192,000 that could have been different, you'd obviously like to know why. So what we did is we used Excel to tell you which files were different and what was different and how long all of your jobs took to run, and so forth. And the links you see right here in blue, when you click on them, they will actually take you to the output files that you're used to seeing, and it will pull up the PV Elite output processor. Okay. There's also some more information. If you were to scroll down in this window right here, you'll see some more information. It was a little too big to show you, but you'll see it. And here in Excel, you will see a tab. Whenever there is a difference for a particular file, a tab will be created. Okay, so what this will show you is it will show you your benchmark value, your test value, and the % difference between the two right here. And there is a description that is given right here, which possibly may not make a whole lot of sense to you in all cases, but hopefully you will be able to decipher it. And one thing I should say right here is that all of the values that you will see compared, are in imperial units. Okay, so if you're in metric units, there's a high probability that you won't be able to find these numbers in there at all, okay? Because these are things like stress and PSI, and so forth and so on. Okay, so my time is about up. I'd like to thank you for attending this webinar and listening in to the recording. If that's what you're doing, I hope you all have a great holiday this year. And again, thanks for attending. And we'll talk to you again soon.
Hi, Scott. Sorry, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, we don't have too many questions. However, Fernando was wondering when this release will be delivered to customers of PV Elite.
Okay, great question. So the way software delivery works here at Intergraph, we actually have thousands of DVDs that we have to produce. And our colleagues in Huntsville, Alabama, are responsible for doing that. And so now that we're actually finished with the software, and we've spent the last few weeks testing, they will receive the DVD very shortly, and begin the reproduction process. So after they've started to reproduce the disc, they will immediately start to send them out to all of our customers, okay, that are current on all of their maintenance and updates and so forth. So so that's one thing that you've got to, if you don't know, you should be concerned. So this will be distributed, directly. So if you think you should get it, you need to be sure and check that you're all up to date on your maintenance and so forth.
Okay.
So my best guess is the disc will start to be shipped out, in the next 2 to so weeks, and I would say early in January. You can probably you should start looking for your disc overseas if you're not in the continental United States. If the package has to go through customs, sometimes that can be a holdup. So all I can ask is just please be patient. It's going to be coming.
Okay, great. Thanks, Scott.
Sure.
Amelia was wondering if you could tell him a little bit more about the heat exchangers use.
Let's see. Heat exchangers. Let's see. I might have to see the exact question.
It's by Emilio Lomelin. Excuse me.
Let's see if I can.
Oh, the question seems to have disappeared.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Okay, we have a few more, though. Did you want to?
Let's see. Let's see. I see one right here. Will the file format still be different for CodeCalc 2014 compared to CodeCalc 2012? The answer to that is in 2013, the file format was changed. We had a whole change of products and tools that we use to produce the software, and actually that in part forced us to have a new file format changed for this version. So the answer is yes, it is different from 2014.
Will custom flanges be added to the nozzle drop-down menu?
We didn't have time to do that this year. However, that is on our list of things to do, and it is certainly one of the things that we very much want to do for next year's version.
Okay, great. And there's one more. The code calc flange calculation temperature bug, has it been resolved?
To the best of my knowledge, any problems like that have been resolved in the 2014 version. Mm-hmm. We also did recently have an SP3 for PV Elite, which was shipped out, or which was made available in the latter half of 2013. Luis might be able to answer that a little bit better than I do, or than I can. But yeah, to the best of my knowledge, any sorts of problems like this have been resolved.
Hi, Scott. Hi, guys. It's Luis. I'm actually just going to talk about this. We actually did made a lot of fixes, and I wanted to remind all the listeners that for them to sign up to our eCustomer website, which is our support website for any changes that we've done, any hot fixes or service packs that are should be available online. And if you have any questions about, please send us an email, and we will check back with you and give you more information about this.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Luis. All right, it looks like we're all done with questions. So I'd like to thank everyone for attending. Everyone will receive a recording of this webinar. You can expect the email to come by tomorrow. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you guys again, probably in the new year. Thanks.
Okay, thanks everybody.